I will open the Tuesday, March 2nd, City Council regular meeting. I need approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second,
Yeah.
seconded. Okay, all in favor? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and then consent for the minutes. Yeah,
Yes.
that's a second.
Thank you. Okay, so on the first set of minutes, which would be February 14th, second page, they're talking about Carolyn Probst and that she had a comment and that I know she submitted a letter here and but I could not find it in any of the information that's provided. So I wanted to make sure that that got submitted,
Yeah, it's in the record and it was sent, it's forwarded to all counselors.
but it isn't in for the public to see.
It's in the record. It wasn't in the packet because it came out after the packet was released.
Right.
But it is in the actual record, so anybody can request to see it.
You have to ask to see it. You can't just see it.
You can see it. We don't typically, when you get comments received after the packet, we don't always put them online. I can go through, but like if somebody.
I would like to request that it go online.
Okay, I can put it online.
Okay, thank you. And then on February 9th minutes, and it would be page 6 of 8. And it talks about, this had to do with the application for the project to redo the zoning and all. And so on item 3, 3rd paragraph, what I had said, it says right here, second to the last paragraph. I don't like that the proposal might just select a winner from the proposal without an interview. That's what I meant, not with an interview is what it said. So I just wanted to be real clear
Okay.
about that. And that's it.
Yeah, so minutes, questions? We would ask vote on that.
I'd move that the minutes be approved with the corrections and clarifications that Commissioner Risley suggested.
I'll second that.
Okay, any comments? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. Now, we move on to our public comment page, and I only have one request that I know of. And that is Patrick. So Patrick Nofield. We'll click the button here and get you lined up.
Hi there, thank you. Patrick Nofield, 271 West Kenai, Cannon Beach. So first off, I stand corrected regarding the email I sent the counselors last week, referring to the dilapidated building at 3115 South Hemlock Street. I understand now that building permits were pulled in July of 2019. Accordingly, I believe the developers have 4 months left to substantially complete their improvements, or they will be required to file an extension. I sincerely hope you had an opportunity to review the photos of the building that I sent you. That building has been vacant for more than 15 years. And with the structure's condition, the faulty electrical system, black mold, excessive dry rot, rats and vermin, not only is it a nuisance, but a public health hazard and sincerely should be demolished. In the first place, I wonder why this project was ever issued a building permit for such a derelict structure. Now, of course, two of our properties, the Inn at Cannon Beach and the lodges at Cannon Beach, are contiguous to the site. But seriously, this location serves as a linchpin, really a gateway for Tolovana Park. You know, we've submitted a significant investment over the last 20 years in that area, and it's really come alive. My question, would the city of Cannon Beach allow a waterlogged eyesore of a building with a windstrewn blue tarp laid devoid of any significant movement for almost 2 years if it were located in the downtown core? Probably not. So why is this acceptable for Tolovana Park? Now, regardless, we are concerned about the lack of progress and sincerely frustrated to review this blight daily. We feel there needs to be significant accountability. We need to enforce our codes. And if significant progress is not made in the next few months, I would hope the city would not do the right thing and not provide an extension and declare the building a public nuisance. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Points.
I'm
Okay,
wondering if Jeff can speak to that. Is it possible?
just not here.
He's on Zoom.
He's on?
Yep.
Yeah,
Hello?
there we are.
Yeah, so we've issued, this is our second letter we issued last week. We've given them till Friday to make progress. They've started roofing. We got an email back yesterday from their legal advisor and have requested a new set of plans and to pull a new building permit. That all has to be done by Friday, or we told them that we would post the site on Monday as a public nuisance. So, you know, we've been trying to work with them towards correcting the building. They've started the work on the landscape, or we've followed up on that, and they've corrected everything that we've asked them to do in that. They're still in the process of doing that. I'm disappointed in the progress as much as Patrick is, and but they are making efforts, and you know, this has been a year and a half of COVID. So you know, we're working, we're trying to they're trying to make an effort. If they don't, we will post the site on Monday and we'll take the corrective actions.
Great, thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay. That was it for the public comment. That we will move to our first item, which is a public hearing regarding the application for waiver from requirement to remove an encroachment of private improvement to the public street right of way. Requested by David Slansky and Susan Tompkins. The request for a waiver is to allow a circular brick paver parking lot located in the public right of way. The property is located at 3678 Pacific Street, tax lot 02902, map 51031DD. The request will be reviewed against criteria of the municipal code, section 1238060, waiver of requirement. Does any council member have a conflict of interest?
I do.
Okay,
Yeah, I represented the seller in the purchase, but during the time, I got to know the buyers well. So anyway.
you're welcome.
I should probably also mention, although I don't think it's a conflict of interest, that I wrote a story about that particular house and interviewed the owners of the house, but this was about 2 years ago.
So at least you know where it is.
Yeah, I know where it is.
Okay.
This is actually
So for Robin's conflict of interest, she did business with the property owner.
Yeah, so we're not hearing you very well.
Okay. That's fine.
No, try again. We're hearing
Can
all
you
of it.
can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So for Robin's conflict of interest, she said that she has done business with the property owner. Is that the conflict?
She's done business with the property owner.
Yes, she's right here.
That's what she said.
Hi,
Okay.
Ashley. Yeah, I represented the seller in the sale of the property, but it was kind of a unique property. So I got to know the buyer pretty well too, and I benefited financially. So I just figured I should recuse myself.
Okay. It might not be a actual conflict of interest under state law, but because you have done business, because you benefited from the property sale, you can choose to recuse yourself. But I'm not sure that it meets the legal standard.
Well, thank you. I do feel it in a gray area. I'd rather do that. Thank.
And actually, that also goes right to our next question was, does any council member have a personal bias? And if they choose or believe they cannot act appropriately within this decision, this is the best maneuver. Okay, anybody else have a personal bias? I don't. Ex parte contacts,
I did a site visit.
site visit,
Site visit as well.
And I did
Okay.
a site visit as well.
2 years ago. Okay,
No, today. as a matter of fact.
I did today too.
yeah. Okay, staff report.
Evening. In late October 2020, a member of the Cannon Beach Public Works staff noticed that cobblestones had been placed in the city's right-of-way adjacent to 3678 Pacific. No right-of-way permit had been submitted for this address. Public Works staff turned the matter over to the code enforcement officer in early November 2020. And the code enforcement officer talked with the homeowners, David Slansky and Susan Calkins, and they agreed that they would remove the cobblestones the next time they were in town. In late November 2020, the homeowners applied for a right-of-way permit. In their application materials, they acknowledged that they had already completed most of the work on the 24 by 24 cobblestone parking pad prior to applying for the permit. The homeowners were advised by city staff that their only options were to remove the cobblestones or submit a right-of-way waiver application. This waiver application was submitted to the city in late January 2021. In the waiver application packet, the homeowner stated that there are no city utilities that run under the cobblestone parking pad. This is inaccurate. Water, sewer, and storm lines run along Pacific, and 2 of those utilities are located underground in the city's right-of-way. In the event of an emergency, such as water line leak, Public Works staff needs to immediate access to the right-of-way to perform the necessary repairs. Emergencies often happen at night or during stormy conditions with heavy rain or high winds. Every second counts when making these critical repairs. The municipal code 12.38.060 clearly states that waiver applications can only be approved if granting the request will not adversely affect the ability of the city to utilize the right-of-way or adversely affect adjacent property. Additionally, the homeowners have applied for a building permit to construct a turret on their home. This work is being conducted by Talabana Architects. The municipal code 12.38.040 states that no building permits will be issued in conjunction with the property unless the encroachment is removed or a waiver is granted by council. To address this, Talabana Architects included a site drawing showing the parking pad move back onto the homeowner's property. Staff recommendation is the city must enforce its municipal code. This situation is unfortunate, but there is a proposed solution that would allow the parking pad to be moved out of the right of way onto the homeowner's property. Staff recommends that council deny the waiver application.
Okay, any additional correspondence? We got the new correspondence all here, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to read this, hang on. Criteria applicable to this request are in Municipal Code Chapters 1238-060 waiver requirement. Testimony, argument, and evidence must be directed towards criteria described in the staff report or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or municipal code which you believe to apply to the decision. Is there a presentation by the applicants? David Slansky.
He's on the call.
Okay.
Think you can hear us.
Hi, David. Yes.
Hi, thank you for hearing our waiver request.
And I'm Susan Tompkins. We purchased the house about 3.5 years ago. For those of you who know the house, it was built by Jerry Bosco out of old house parts, many of them that came from the Lloyd Center area. And so when we went about looking at a driveway or parking pad, we wanted to do something that was in keeping with the Victorian era of the house. We looked at many driveway situations on our walks, and we saw cement and pavers and of course asphalt and gravel, but we saw many different applications. And so we didn't think about applying for a permit, for which we're now sorry we didn't. But one thing I would like to say is that we did bring in cobblestones from the city of Portland and did, almost, pretty much finish that project. When it was brought to our attention that there was a problem. We have not applied for a permit to build a turret. And while we have talked with David Veneta and, he's done drawings for us, we have absolutely nothing going in that area, legally or officially. It's only a thought at the moment. Also, our cobblestones are completely removable, as would gravel be probably easier than asphalt would be. We do not ever intend to make it permanent. There is just sand in between the cobblestones. So we thought that was very much in keeping with the idea of the right of way and the cities being able to access it. David?
Yeah, as I built that, I didn't realize that there was a right of way. I mean, looking back on it, of course there is. I believe probably most towns, I don't know, Cannon Beach's specs, but I know that many towns have a 60-foot right of way, 30 feet on the other side of the center of the road. So clearly I was building on the right of way, but I wasn't thinking about it. And it just didn't occur to me. It's just, seemed to be part of the property with weeds on it for that matter. And it would be an off-street parking and near the street. And this, this isn't a situation where I knew it was a right of way and I thought it'd be better to act and ask for forgiveness later. I mean, I was just totally ignorant. I totally appreciate that there's a right of way. I guess neighbors, of course, have been very positive and supportive of it. Again, putting the right of way issue aside, they think it's an enhancement of the property and their properties. And it strikes me as odd that asphalt would be permissible, whereas these stones wouldn't be. I mean, that one could not instantly access the ground underneath in the right of way if there were asphalt. You'd have to bring in heavy equipment. We could pick those stones up and get them out of the way of a project. I would also like to say, and this may not be a typical thing to consider, but we would certainly be willing to enter any kind of agreement. I know it wouldn't be a deed, it would maybe be some kind of agreement that could be recorded where we would agree to remove them when a project needed to be undertaken or repairs needed to be undertaken, that we would remove it with 24 hours notice. But in the meantime, we'd like to have that attractive pad and that place to park cars off the street.
Yeah, the neighbors, well, 3 or 4 of our neighbors have did send in letters initially when we applied for the permit. And I believe a few of them have also sent in letters to go with this presentation tonight.
Yes, we have several. So, is that all?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I need to ask now, are there any proponents? We need to go to the attendees.
There was no request to speak.
This is a public hearing, so it's going to be open. Request to speak is for the comment phase. Are there anybody in the attendees that would like to make a proponent comment? I don't see anybody, so we'll move on. Are there any opponents who wish to comment? Okay, that was easy. So we'll move on to staff response.
I would like to just say that staff's role is to effectively and consistently enforce the code that council has put in place. And although I've seen a variety of right-of-way encroachments over the years, despite my opinion on how beautiful I think many of them have been, some of them very expensive, I've had to enforce the code, and the homeowners have had to move the items out of the right of way. And this includes fences, stone walls, landscaping, a variety of things that may be encroaching in the right of way, and just simply because they were not aware of what their property lines were, or where our right of ways were. So just like these folks, it was an innocent mistake. But nonetheless, I've had to enforce the code. I think with this situation specifically, there has been some neighboring residents around these folks that have had to repair or correct, I will say, their encroachments. So I think it's difficult to allow some and not others, and not be able to speak to that. In this situation, we have a viable solution. There's ample room on the private property to move it back. So it's not like the pad has to go away or be removed completely. It just needs to be shifted back out of the right of way.
Applicant, do you have any other last comments, David? I guess not. Okay. I will close public hearing and move for consideration.
I'm sorry, I have one thought.
Okay.
I think I might have muted myself by mistake. The thought is, and I'm not in favor of causing other property owners problems, but there are clearly attractive and driveways made out of concrete that within a block of our place encroach on the right of way as much as our pad does, or if not, well, they come to the street. And that's not to say two wrongs make a right, but there's already some inconsistency. And again, we feel that the what we've done sits on compacted gravel. Stones are heavy, so they don't scatter in the wind, but they're not otherwise secured, not among themselves. They're just sand sifted in between them. So we'd like that movability, non-permanency, to be considered in granting a waiver. That's all. Thank you.
And
Sorry.
I'd just like to say that with those other, the cement and pavers and other driveways that we see, if we're not allowed to put a removable paver on our right of way, then what are you going to do about all these homes that we've seen within walking distance of ours that are obviously out of compliance?
Okay, thank you.
And I would also just like to ask for something called flexibility in the because of the uniqueness of our property and are wanting very much to stay in character with that property, which is Victorian, and that's what we're trying to do. It's not like we thought, there'd be some nice modern art thing we could put in there, some new material that we could use. This is something that goes with the house. And in fact, there already are cobblestones on the property, pathways and stuff that the original builder, Jerry Bosco, put in himself. And that's it.
Thank you. Now, back to where we were, consideration. Council, any comments?
Is it okay to ask a question of staff at this point, Sam?
Yes, please.
This is to Karen. If this structure was not there and they wanted to build it and requested a waiver, what would happen? Is it in the location where their driveway would be anyways?
The key consideration from a staff perspective would be the access to our infrastructure that would lie underneath where they're wanting to put the paving pad. That would be the concern. If we
I
had
understand the concern, but is this the location of their existing driveway?
No.
Where on the property is the current existing driveway?
You look at the drawing that Taliban architect drew and is in your packet. It depicts where their property line ends and the right of way starts. So it shows you about how much footage wise it would have to be shifted back right away.
I think he's asking
my question.
From the pavement to their property.
Oh, okay. I think that on Pacific, there's a 50-foot right of way there.
Okay. So
My question actually is, where on their own property would their driveway be?
I think that's what Taliban architect actually depicted, the stones, that round circular stone design would be the driveway on their property in his drawing.
Okay.
But Karen, I think the question is the entrance, the logical entrance for a driveway, is it on the east side where they put the pavers now? There's not another entrance, is there, there would be an obvious driveway?
No.
No,
But all likelihood, that would be the driveway location.
based on what exists there today, that's it.
And if Pacific Avenue was paved and somebody wanted to just meet the asphalt with their own driveway, wouldn't that be approved?
The apron, they would have a choice to meet it with, yes, asphalt or 3/4 minus gravel. To their driveway meet the street, yes, they would have that option to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome,
Even though that's in the right of way, you're saying.
yes. A hard surface apron to someone's driveway, it has to match the street, so it'd either be 3/4 minus or asphalt. Even if the street is not paved, you know, they can't put an asphalt apron to meet a gravel street.
Oh, okay.
3/4 minus, but if they want to have their driveway meet the street and the street is paved, they can have the option of asphalt or 3/4 minus.
Okay.
Cutting and accessing asphalt is a lot easier than a variety of whatever someone might have in the right of way. At least the guys have the tools, they can quickly cut it and get into the infrastructure. When they go out and they don't know what to expect, and we have a variety of things in the right of way, they don't always go prepared for whatever that might be.
Do you have a concern that pavers like these cobblestones is a problem?
They're heavy.
If I was a backhoe operator, I'd be concerned.
It's,
They're big.
I think we would damage a lot of stones using the backhoe.
Yeah, I mean, the owners wouldn't be happy when our backhoe operator or our contract backhoe operator shows up and starts dragging those things away.
Well, I think that's the risk they have taken by putting it in the public
Yeah.
right away. On top of that, also, it is public parking.
Right.
So if there's a situation, which is rare in that area, but if there's a situation that a visitor wanted to park there and walk on the beach, there's a parking spot.
you can. And if
So-
any of those stones have come loose or they're up, not flat and cared for, someone trips and falls, the city has some liability in the right of way because someone has fallen. We've allowed this out in the right of way. That might be an Ashley question, but it's not something our staff is prepared to maintain or take care of. And so there is some consideration in that vein.
I think too, I appreciate Mr. Slansky and Ms. Tompkins offer a suggestion of give us 24 hours and we'll move them. But you folks hardly ever have 24 hours to wait. I mean, when something is happening, when it's water's coming out of the ground, you're there in a half hour. So I don't know, it would be rare that we would have that kind of notice that we were going to be doing something in an area.
It's more manageable with a planned project, but unfortunately, that's not typically what happens to us. We're going out in the middle of the night and all kinds of weather. And like I say, we don't always have the equipment to deal with whatever might be in the right of way that's been approved.
Yeah, just down the street, I saw Daniel out there
I'm sorry.
I saw just down the street from their house today, Daniel was out there trying to repair a leak, digging a hole, using a sump pump. And that was, you couldn't wait 24 hours and tell people, well, we'll do it tomorrow.
I have a disagreement with the fact that pavers are not, they're easy. I mean, you lift them out. I do bricks all the time, but pavers are just as easy. You take a pry bar, you pull one up, and then you pull the rest out. They are not hard. In fact, if I were to prefer that over anything else other than just straight gravel, yeah, pavers make a heck of a lot of sense in that situation. So I don't know. To me, that's not a moot topic. I think more importantly is that if the property owners understand that at any time city can come up and dig them up, and also at any time public can park there. Those are the two risks that they have taken by doing something in the public right of way. And I believe that they are asking for the waiver If this had come, like Brandon was asking, if this had come before they did anything, if this had come to me, I would have said, sure, no problem. And I still kind of feel that way. So I don't see any issue here personally. But let me rephrase just the fact that your job of enforcing the code is appropriate. And you've done that in all the instances that I know of. Here, they are aware of it now, and so they're asking for a waiver. That becomes our decision, and I think it's perfectly okay. So there we go. That's my take.
Yeah, I guess I tend to agree with that if there wasn't a viable alternative, which they've shown with their architect has shown that moving it, I think they're showing, what, 18 feet to the center. Anyway, it's movable and can still, it's very attractive. You know, there's no doubt about that. But there is a viable alternative that then avoids the issues that staff has presented. So I guess I'm inclined to request it to be moved.
Nancy or Brandon, comments?
Well, I do have a question of Karen. How easy is it to move those pavers?
I haven't tried to move them.
Just a little elbow grease, not a big deal.
Tim, these are bigger than what you would buy
They're called
Home Depot or something. They're more
Can
substantial.
they just be picked up? They don't have to, you don't have to do any, they're not going to be cemented in, right? It's just set in gravel. They can be picked up and moved.
just set in sand.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they
It
can
depends
still
on
be
the
picked.
situation. If we had a water line break where I had gallons of water rushing down the street or flooding someone's home, I wouldn't be picking them up onesie twosie by hand. I'd take an excavator or a loader and I'd make a big scrape as quick as I possibly could.
That would work.
Yeah.
I do have a final comment for myself. There was something that disturbed me in one of the letters that was sent from David Oliver and Cassandra Eckblade. And they've made what I feel are disturbing accusations about either our code inspector, and I'm not sure exactly what they're saying, but they're saying somebody has appointed himself to the position of city code inspector. This person has repeatedly waited until work has been completed after watching the preparation, expenditure of money and labor without complaining to the owner until he files his complaints. And I just, that doesn't sit well with me, and I'd appreciate it if the staff could respond to that.
I'm not sure, Brandon, again, not knowing who wrote the letter or having a chance to ask them about it. I know that in some neighborhoods, there is somebody that kind of appoints himself as the code enforcement person. So that's one possibility. The other is that it's our code enforcement folks, be it from PD or from Public Works. But I know that they meet is it Monday, Karen, or Friday? Did you meet with Travis and community development, and they go through all of these things. And Karen has said that they became aware when Public Works was doing a drive-through on the city. They were in the neighborhood and they saw this, and that's what started this process. So to my knowledge, and I'll ask Jason, because the code enforcer is specifically under the police department, but I'm not aware. And that's the first time I'm hearing that complaint.
Thank you.
If I could, I don't think they're referring to our code enforcement officer. I think there's a healthy debate in the neighborhood about what's being allowed for some folks and what's not being allowed with others. And like many neighborhoods in Cannon Beach, a neighbor will call and report another neighbor about something. So I think this may have been how this got started. And that may be what they're referring to.
Brandon, I had talked with the complainants and they had told me it was a neighbor that had appointed themselves as a code enforcement officer.
Thank you, Jason, for your response. I just, I expect better of our personnel, and that just reinforces that.
Thanks, Brandon.
I guess my feeling is because there are situations where there is encroachment that hasn't been identified or a complaint issued, and some get away with it, and others had to remove their encroachments. And there's going to be an accusation, well, why did I have to remove my shrubbery or my fence when they didn't have to move theirs? I didn't know. All I had to do was go to city council and they'd say, oh, sure. So I guess I just a little bit of a rule stickler.
Code enforcement has a tough job because there has been things happen in past years that encroached into the right of way. And if we abide by our code, he's the person that's got to carry that message forward. And it's a challenging job. But like I say, there's been many encroachments where we had some beautiful fences be built and they were removable fences. You could pick the panels up and get them out of the way if we needed to. But the homeowners had to make the adjustment and sometimes move their fences back just a minor amount of footage, maybe 6 inches in one gentleman's situation. But he did it to abide by code. He didn't realize where his property line ended and where the right of way started. So there's been many beautiful pieces of work throughout town that the homeowners have obliged and dealt with it to be able to support our code.
And also there's another side to this, and that's people that don't like having people park in front of their houses could be pretty creative, and in some cases they're not necessarily beautiful, but maybe huge boulders or something are suddenly put out at the road's edge as opposed to the property line. And if you don't want us to enforce, fine, but if we don't enforce when somebody does something like that, we really can't say anything. And so, Karen and Travis are in a very difficult spot because so much has been let go for a long time that when we get a complaint or when we're out there looking, we try to go ahead and resolve the issue with folks. But a lot of people would just as soon let the plants grow all the way out so nobody can park or whatever. And we have to deal with those all the time. So there is another side to allowing people to do things in the right of way. This one is a little bit different because it's not something that's actually going out and blocking. I understand that part, but we deal with the people that are just coming out and blocking too.
I totally agree with that. Every code needs to be enforced. This, as far as I can remember, and I've been doing this for a while, I have never had a waiver come to the city council. This is the first time. So that opportunity is available. If we don't want that opportunity, we need to take that out. But right now we have that opportunity. They're asking, yes, it's post fact, but it is a waiver. And in this case, it's a positive development, not a boulder or a tree out in the thing. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the waiver aspect. The code enforcement has happened. We've done a good job. We caught it. We don't catch everything, and we have people now working on it more diligently. So that's great. But here we have a waiver. So that's what I'm looking at.
But it sounds to me like if we granted a waiver, we're doing it because they didn't know. And most of these other encroachments is they didn't know where their property line was. They didn't know that they couldn't put boulders there or put shrubbery in. So we're not waiving it because of unusual circumstance that there's no other way to enter the driveway or anything like that. We're just saying, in this case, gee, they already put it in. It's like, I'll do it now and ask forgiveness, later. And that's not what they've done, because they just didn't know. But if we take that as our rule, then we might as well give up on any encroachment code enforcement at all.
And I wouldn't take it as a rule. To me, I'm looking at what happened, what is in place. Had that come to us as a drawing or in the photographs that we have here, you know, that is a situation, that is a positive situation, not a negative situation. So, and it is totally a workable material. That's all I'm.
Could I add a couple things to the conversation?
Hi, Ash. Yes.
Hi. So I just want to bring a couple things to your attention. So I don't want to influence the deliberations in any way. But the council's options here are to approve with conditions, or deny. So I wanted to bring that up. And then second, you know, I think Karen read them at the beginning, but I think it might help to read the criteria for which the council's making this decision.
I can't hear you. Your microphone is bad.
How about if I move closer?
It seems the closer you get, the better it gets.
Okay. I'll get right up in here then. So did you hear what I said before about, okay. So the council's options are to approve this waiver, to approve it with conditions, or to deny it. So if we are heading in the approval, I would like to discuss, you know, at a minimum, some of the conditions that we would put in there. And also, I think it might be helpful, Karen, could you read the criteria for which the council should be considering in making this decision? I think that could be helpful here.
Reread the criteria that I used to consider this.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is a waiver of encroachments onto public street or right of way under 12.3.8060, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if everybody can hear me, I can go ahead and read the criteria. So the public hearing, and then the council shall determine whether the application meets the following criteria. That there is an exceptional circumstance which does not generally apply to other properties, or that the requiring the removal of the encroachment would create a practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship that is not proportional to the proposed action of the requested building permit. The granting of the request will not adversely affect the ability of the city to utilize the right-of-way or adversely affect adjacent properties. So those are the criteria that that the council has set out for making this decision.
If I can make a suggestion. If the council is inclined to approve this, I would set two conditions. One is that if we reach a situation that the stones need to be moved for whatever reason, that the city will do it by mechanical means and will take no responsibility for any damage to the stones or anything else. That would be the first thing. The other thing is when I'm comparing this to like people putting rocks out at the edge of the road, this particular one, this is in line with where the driveway would go. So to me, I can see that that makes it a little bit different than somebody that's putting plants all the way out at the edge, or stones or fences or whatever. So I think that if that is the inclination, that if we make that distinction as part of the motion or as part of the conditions, I think that that's something that would not create a terrible precedent, nor, and anytime staff goes out and does a project, it's being paid for by everybody else in the city. So if we were able to go ahead and move by mechanical means, but there are a lot of pavers there in order to make that shape. So we would just get them out of our way, same as we would if it was asphalt or gravel. So those are possibilities if you want to go in that direction. But if you did, I would ask that those conditions be part of whatever your discussion is.
So
I'm not advocating the waiver. I'm just saying that if you're headed that way, I would want to see those in there to avoid issues in the future. I'm sorry.
So you hit on exactly kind of where I was going. if we were thinking about approving, I would want that condition attached. I would want, for us to consider some sort of indemnification for third-party claims that have to do with the pavers, for whatever they may be. And then a condition and acknowledgement that it is still a public parking spot and no additional action should be taken to restrict that.
And again, I think an acknowledgement that it is in the driveway. And so it's not an attempt to take over right of way. So that's, okay, thank you.
So, Ashley, when you say indemnification, that means that we would not be held liable in case of any damage to a pedestrian or a car or anything like that, if something was to happen with those pavers, is that right?
Yes, I mean, we would still likely be named in that lawsuit, but the owners would have to take over that lawsuit and resolve any damages that come from it. So it would still be our problem, but we would have them step in our behalf.
And 10 years from now, something happens, who's going to know that there was this agreement in place?
We'll put that in the address by file, so that it stays with that address, no matter who owns it.
And Jason will remember.
Yeah, I mean, we could also,
It wouldn't be recorded.
I mean,
It
we
would just
could look
be in a
into,
file.
yeah.
Go ahead, Ashley.
Yeah, I mean, we could look into if there's a way to record it against the property. It would be additional steps for the city to take. And it could be precedent setting to other properties as well.
But if the situation were to occur and someone who was to do research on the property, they would see that a waiver had been granted and there were conditions.
Right.
So we would keep that waiver in our record. So it would probably be found.
The city also has a process for issuing a permit, correct? For permit for an encroachment into the right of way.
Yes.
Right of way permits, yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, I would want some of the similar language from that permit, some of the similar issues taken care of in this waiver. Karen or Bruce, do you know what that permit includes?
Karen, do you know what is included in the right of way permit? You or Jen?
The waiver?
No, you're asking about the permit, right, Ashley? The right of way permit, work in the right of way. Is there the right of way permit?
Okay.
What kind of requirements are there in there?
As far as getting the right of way permit?
Yes.
Apply for the right of way. Right of way permits could be a variety of things. So what
Yes.
specifically are you talking about?
I think this particular situation,
Okay, so assuming that they filed for this right of way permit ahead of time, they would submit a drawing as to what they're wanting to do in the right of way, why they're wanting to do it, and that there's no other option for them to be able to do it on their private property, and why they're asking to be in the right of way. And again, I would go through the same criteria that I went through on this one. You grant it with the conditions. There's a section there where we can put conditions. We stamp it, it's approved. We scan that, keep it on our city server as a record forever. And we give the copy to the customer and they proceed if it's a granted right-of-way permit.
Does that answer your question, Ashley?
It does. So a lot of times with permits, we have some standard language, for instance, indemnification, not holding the city liable for damage to property, that sort of thing. So I was just making sure that there was nothing in that permit that we would not also want to bring into this discussion.
And we have the indemnity in the right-of-way permit as well.
Yeah.
So every house that has a paved driveway to a paved street has had to have acquired one of these permits to get that paving?
Yes.
Okay.
That typically happens when we're doing some type of street work and we notify the neighbors, all homeowners in that area. And we give them the option to, it's called the apron. Their apron meets the driveway to the street. If they want to do something with that, they work with the paving company. They get billed separately from the city. We pay for that, but the paver does it while they're doing our streets. That's usually when the aprons are addressed. Otherwise, it's just 3/4 minus gravel. That's the standard.
Okay.
The other thing we have to consider is to change our code that addresses this type of a thing. If we're going to allow this one, there's grass creek and similar type of pavers like this that people will be coming forward to ask for. They're very popular, they're removable. So it's going to open up some discussions for you. So we would want to address that part of the code. If we don't, then we just need to be prepared for lots of requests.
Yeah, there's a couple with grasscrete up in my neighborhood already.
I'm sorry?
There's a couple with grasscrete up in my neighborhood already. So, yeah. So it's possible. Okay. Council, we're looking for a motion to.
Well, I do have one more question. There is an alternative for them, an alternative location for them to move those pavers, right? They can move it up into the driveway.
Correct. They just move it back. I don't remember what the feet is that is identified on the architect's drawing, but it shows the number of feet that they would have to move it back to get it back. It can exist. It just can be shifted back onto their private property.
I think it was something like 18 to 20 feet.
Yeah, it's 18 feet on the drawing.
Well, that's the minimum.
Oh, no, that's the minimum. Never mind.
So it looks like it's less.
Yeah.
I put a tape measure on it on my site visit and it appeared to be 14 to 15 feet over the property line, just visually looking at it. So I'd say that measurement's close.
The answer to Nancy's question is yes, there is another location.
Well, just to get this moving on, I would make a motion that we deny the request for a waiver.
I have a second.
I'll second it.
Any last discussion points? No? Jennifer?
Counselor Ogilvy,
Just to be clear, my vote, a yes vote would be against the denial, correct?
No.
No.
The motion is to deny. So a
Oh,
yes
so-
vote
so,
is.
I'm sorry, yes, so I would like to vote no.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Mayor Stidle.
No. And now we need a new motion. Motion fails for tie.
Oh, that's right. Robin recused herself.
I move to approve the waiver with the noted additions that Bruce made.
And Ashley, because Ashley had a couple of points I don't think Bruce made.
Okay,
And,
as well as Ashley's concerns.
Can we do that, Jennifer?
Yes, I'll work with Ashley and Bruce to make sure we have everything covered.
Okay. Have a second? I will second it.
Can I make a comment, sir?
Sure.
With the, I had cited a couple of conditions and I think Ashley did. I don't think staff has reviewed this from the standpoint of an approval. And so if it's possible to amend the motion to approval with appropriate conditions, as opposed to saying, well, only the conditions we talked about tonight are the ones that could be imposed. So I'd just like to broaden it a little bit in case something else comes up, because we've really not thought this through all the way.
We
I'm
could-
amenable to that.
We could also table this until you have some documentation and then we can all vote on it.
Mhm.
Do that.
I think I would prefer that.
I'm
Okay,
okay with that as well.
okay, Brandon, do you want to rescind your motion
I
until
will
for a table?
rescind my motion.
There we go. And we will table this until our next regular meeting.
April meeting?
Yeah.
Jen, do you have the date for that?
Yeah. April
It's the 6th.
6th.
Okay, so table to April 6th. Okay.
Okay. Sorry for the delay, but that seems like where we're heading. We'll move on to our next item.
Hey, Sam, I'm sorry, because I haven't seen this very often. Ashley, is there a need to make a motion to table or just consensus?
I mean, you can make a motion to table. I want to, bring something up and also ask it as a question.
Hello, sir.
Move up. There you go.
I want to bring something up and also ask it as a question. So right now, it looked like we are going to have a 2-2 on what was presented today. So, just taking a look at the charter, you need a majority members to approve an action. So I guess what we're thinking is that if we perhaps bring this back with additional conditions addressed, that the vote may change. Is that what we're thinking?
Correct.
The vote might change, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
At the very most, there's a possibility of it. Is that what you're asking? Or is there something else in mind, Ashley?
No, that was it. I just wanted to make sure that it was on the table that we needed a majority to move this forward. And so if we knew there wasn't going to be a majority to move this forward, there wouldn't be a huge reason to bring it back in another month. But it sounds like there could be movement on this. So there is reason to bring it back next month.
Next month. Where's my agenda? Hang on. For our next item, consideration of resolution 2109 for the purpose of approving changes to the fiscal year 2021 budget by increasing appropriations in the general fund to allow for a specific purpose grant from the National Association of County and City Health Officials. Rick.
Thank you, Council and Mayor. For the sake of time, I'm going to try to go through this relatively quickly and just use the acronyms that are listed here. The staff report is that we would like to ask for the consideration of the resolution from the National Association County of City Health Officials, and it's pronounced NACHO. The background on this is our own Medical Reserve Corps, in cooperation with the Disaster Animal Response Team, has secured a $10,000 grant through NACHO. The MRC, DART, and CERT teams function underneath the umbrella of the Emergency Management Department here. And for us tonight, we actually have Bob Kroll here, who's going to present the actual analysis and information for this. So Bob, it's over to you.
Thank you. So I would like to share my screen. I have a very brief PowerPoint presentation. I'm not sure if I need to introduce myself like public comments, but I'm Bob Kroll, 139 Westway in Cannon Beach, and I am a retired veterinarian. So let's see. Do you have the full screen or the one that looks like the presenter view?
Yeah, full screen.
You have the full screen.
You got it right.
Okay. So I just want to quickly go through a little bit about DART and about this grant that we've received. Just to briefly talk about when the need for pet response and preparation came into national attention in 2005 during Hurricane Katrina. They did not allow pets to be evacuated with their owners, and because of that, many owners refused to be evacuated, which resulted in risk to both the citizens, the first responders, and actually some deaths. And so Congress subsequently passed the Pet Evacuation and Transportation Standards Acts, which requires municipalities to have a plan for management of the pets. This slide has some data from the American Veterinary Medical Association, and the things I want to point out are on the pie chart that a majority of people do consider their dogs or cats as true family members, and that about 64% of households in the US do have pets. Lila Wickham and Dr. Bob Wayne started the Cannon Beach MRC in 2015. My wife and I have been involved since nearly the beginning, and I participated in the leadership team for MRC. In 2017, Chief Skirmerhorn and Stacy Burr, who was the emergency management consultant at that time, asked me to organize and initiate an emergency animal response team. And so that's how the CB DART, Disaster Animal Response Team, came to be. And really our goals are to help both locals and visitors with emergency prep for their pets and to be prepared for a disaster, and to work with our other volunteer teams. Based on those statistics and what we know about the population of Cannon Beach, there are about 740 dogs that are resident in Cannon Beach and about 1,000 cats. We also know that if we have a big tourist day like Sandcastle, we could have 1,000 or 2,000 visiting dogs. So it could be a pretty extreme thing. Based on information from state emergency management, they predict that if we have an earthquake and tsunami, that maybe 5% of the animals will actually need to be sheltered, and about 20% of those animals will probably need commodity support. They can still stay with their owners, but the owners will need some assistance. This grant from NACCHO is intended to help train community members and to help build our preparedness. And these are the things regarding animal management that we need to pay attention to. The Operational Readiness Award, which is what this is for Medical Reserve Corps around the country, have two different levels of award. Tier 1 is for initial building of MRC response capabilities. Tier 2, the $10,000 award level, is to strengthen capabilities. And because Lila has already received one grant, we qualify for the second tier. And we had the application in, I believe, in November, and we heard in mid-January that we were approved to receive the $10,000 award. So this award will be paid in 2 equal payments once the organization receives required deliverables. And what they consider to be deliverables for the first report, which is due in a couple of weeks, is a signed contract from the city, an action plan, which we really have already done, that was in our grant proposal, and then invoices for the purchases we plan to make when we receive the money. And then the second report, which is due not that long after, the middle of July, is an interim progress report and additional invoices. So our plan with the first payment is to purchase a Connex box, 40-foot freight box, to store all of our equipment and supplies, as well as a MASH style military surplus tent that we would use as a shelter, an animal shelter. And then subsequently the second payment to purchase the pet care supplies and equipment and other resources. So I ran through that really quickly because I was told I only had a few minutes. So does anybody have any questions?
Thanks for the hard work.
That went very fast.
Bob, where would you put the tent?
I'm going to try to get this so I'm looking at my camera. These would be stored probably at the Tango Cache site, the same place we have the MRC's current tent. And as I think Rick put I think it was in his letter, but what the Red Cross does, I mean, they certainly recognize for emergency sheltering that they need to make accommodations for pets, but they typically do not allow them in the same shelter as their owners. And so we would want to situate this nearby, hopefully so that owners that are capable can actually help care for their own pets, and they can walk them and feed them and that kind of thing, because we're going to be limited in how many volunteers we have to manage this. And it's always good if people can take care of their own pets, but we want them nearby where they're sheltered as well. So that would probably, there is a Connex box next to the cache site at Tango right now at the south end of town, where the current MASH tent is stored. We would put this Connex box, I believe, right next to the current one, and store all the pet supplies and have more room for the things that go in the cache site that we need to put in the cache site. Any other questions? Not, I guess I'll turn it back over to Rick.
Okay. Just to add one thing to our CERT, MRC, and DART teams, we are incredibly fortunate in this community to have not only just a lot of volunteers, but qualified people. Just at the most recent vaccination, we've had not only Lila, Bob Wayne, and Bob and Nancy Kroll, and they're actually providing vaccinations, but they plan the other parts as well. And there's other people that also assist drastically in our MRC teams. And so we're very fortunate to have these people, and they're also actually going out and getting the grants and funding this program as well. So we're very, very lucky. Our recommendation from staff is that we ask council to accept the NACHO grant and vote to amend the budget to support the grant process of $10,000.
I will jump in and just say that I'm 100% support the grant process. I think Bob has done a tremendously beneficial job for the whole community. I do have minor little issues that I keep trying to inject into the emergency team, and I will take that back to the emergency team. It does not need to be addressed here.
Does anybody have any questions about what we would be doing with that equipment or where it would be located any further? No? Okay.
I just think it's a wonderful thing because people will all be a lot more comfortable in a difficult situation.
Yeah, it's something that in most emergencies aren't planned for, and then you have to deal with it on the fly. And so this will at least be a great starting point.
And a big part of this grant, even though we're not spending, I mean, the money is being spent for tangible things, but a big part of our grant proposal was providing training for both our volunteers and for the community. And so we will be working hard and helping people feel more prepared, even for minor events or, you know, first aid things, how to prepare their go kits for to include their pet care supplies and things like that. So it's not just like with everything that CERT and MRC are doing. It's not only for that Cascadia event. We're trying to help people be ready for other less serious events.
I took one of Dr. Cole's animal first aid, and it was great. And I mean, it was amazing what I learned, including giving my dog CPR, but he doesn't like it much when I practice. Gotta twist him up. But anyway, that was a great program, Doctor.
Thank you.
Okay, we need to motion to adopt.
I move to adopt resolution 21-09 for the purpose of approving changes to the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget by increasing appropriation general fund to allow for a specific purpose grant from the National Association of County and City Health.
Second.
Motion to approve and seconded. Jennifer.
Counselor McCarthy?
Yes.
Council President Benefield?
Yes.
Counselor Risley?
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Mayor Sidell.
Yes. Hey, Bob, thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, next item, consideration of resolution 2110 for the purpose of raising the short-term rental rates. Jeff, are you back on?
I am. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So yes, you guys, I had brought the building fees last year and we upped those. I brought the land use fees a month or two ago and we raised those as well. And now you've asked me for the short-term rental fees. I brought you those. I did want to note that I spoke with finance department and rolling out these fees on billing and how that works. I would request that the resolution be amended to be July 1st is the date that this would be adopted and go live. And so that was the one note. I did put in the packet, I'm sorry if it's confusing. I do exhibits for the Planning Commission and Design Review Board. And then I think when we went to attachment A's and B's, I'm sorry about that. I'll try to catch that next time. But I gave you the current fees and then the proposed, and then gave you an attachment C there, the comparisons that you had requested me go back and I contacted each one of these and requested their current ones. And as you can see, like you'd suspected, Gearhart, Seaside, and Manzanita is also currently going through a task force of their own, and they may even be upping their fees further. But this shows the current rates, and what I've proposed is I believe in keeping with those. And one of the notes that I wanted to at least bring up, and it came up in our short-term rental task force meeting today, is that this is not simply to raise the fees to be in line with others around the region. You know, we haven't increased fees, I don't think, for 10 years or so. We have very low fees, and yet we've hired a code enforcement officer. We've started a short-term rental task force. We see more and more kind of activity and commitment to kind of monitor that activity and to process these fees. And we are one of the few jurisdictions that does that kind of yearly audit. So it's a lot of work, and I appreciate Katie's turnaround. We've just done our yearly audit and got some new data on that, and hopefully we'll have an update on that data by the end of the month as well. We've got some provisional numbers that we ran by the short-term rental task force, and that will be also available online hopefully tomorrow. So if anybody wants to see that, it'll be on the short-term rental page. Any questions?
No, I appreciate your research and your quick change on this. I think it'll help. It'll be more in line with what the other cities are doing.
And Jeff, you said that you would like to see the effective date be delayed beyond the normal 30 days. What,
July 1st.
July 1st? Oh, to coincide with budget and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeff.
Yes.
Could you speak to, I assume you were at the short-term rental task force meeting today, is that correct?
Yes.
We received an email from Bob Neroni suggesting that the fee schedule could be oriented more towards something like square footage. And my opinion is that no other city does that. And it seems to be something that would be quite cumbersome on the part of the city to try and enact. I don't see a lot of, or it seems equitable on paper, it just doesn't seem practical in terms of execution. And I was just wondering if maybe you could respond to that.
Well, yes, that we did not actually talk about that at the meeting, but Bob sent that afterwards. So we didn't toss that around as an idea or anything, or no one else mentioned it. I do know, Brandon, though, that Seaside does do theirs by occupancy. So they have kind of an increasing by, if you look at that chart that as attachment C, they do.
I did notice that. They have three.
A kind of a step approach. But like you said, that's the only one that I really know of. I haven't seen that before except for Seaside, but you know, I think it might be more trouble than worth, at least as far as kind of tracking that and monitoring it.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, Jeff.
Actually, I would think proximity to the ocean would be more relative than square footage if you were going to go that direction.
I think that's an excellent point, and that's the kind of stuff I really think that we could kind of look into when we're doing this analysis with the short-term rental task force. But you know, we'll be back before you guys yearly for fees updates, like I said, and so I do think that's a great point.
I actually was really looking at the Seaside breakdown because I thought that was fascinating. I've never heard of that, but I like your proximity to the ocean is more valuable.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
And,
that's why they rent.
Interesting. I'm almost thinking, if we're going to wait till July anyhow, maybe it's time to have that discussion between now and July before we just jump right into this. If that's something the council wants to proceed with, I wouldn't mind, especially if the task force was interested in that. I know Bob was, something that made it an equitable situation between size and location.
Well, and to look at it from the reverse, the houses that are further away from the beach wouldn't have the kind of income at all. They could be huge, but anyway.
I guess I think it's a good idea. I would rather spend more time as we think about what close to the beach really means in different neighborhoods, and maybe propose this as we adjust. We're going to do this annually, a review of our rate structure. Let's do it prior to next year's review of overall rates and go ahead and adopt what's before us right now, the July 1. I think between now and then, I think we're going to get into all kinds of questions on coming up with an equitable way of doing it. I think it's a great idea, but I think it's going to take more than, we got a lot of other stuff. Jeff has a lot of other things too. To have that in time, to have a discussion, presentation, and effective date for this coming budget, I think just kind of pushing it. I mean, it's probably March, and it just flies by. So that'd be my record. I like the idea, but I'd like to see us make those kinds of adjustments for next year.
Well, I can see some, what's the equitability in a small, say, two-person rental that's close to the ocean versus one that houses many more people farther away. I'm not sure how you quantify that, and if just using the proximity to the ocean is the correct way to get what we really want. And so what I'm really trying to say is I agree with Mike. I think we should approve what's up before us and let the short-term rental task force do its job.
Okay. Anybody else? What do we need on this?
The motion.
Well, I move that we approve resolution number 2110 for the purpose of raising the short-term rental rates.
A second?
Motion to approve and seconded.
I guess
Jennifer.
we do need the July 1st starting date.
Oh, Effective July 1st.
Thank you, Nancy.
I have that in the motion.
Okay.
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Councilor Risley,
Yes.
Councilor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
Mayor Stidel.
Yes. Okay, passes. There you go, Jeff. Oh, hang on, you're on next too. Scope of review, determination for the Moon Appeal of Planning Commission to deny.
Item 5, sir.
Pardon?
Item 5.
Did I miss one? Hang on. Oh, sorry, I missed one. Consideration of resolution 2111 for the purpose of approving increasing and decreases of the fiscal year 2021 budget by making an intra-fund transfer appropriations for this to the recycling center, Ballot repair. Kara.
This transfer request supports a repair that's needed for our baler at the recycle center. February 18th, the staff informed me that the baler was leaking hydraulic fuel and it was not bailing properly when they tried to bale bundles of cardboard. And so I notified the local vendor that's worked on our baler over the years, and he was not able to do a welding repair that he's done in the past that has left this baler alone. The baler's almost 30 years old, and it's done a good job for us. It bales a lot of cardboard every single day. It's a crucial part of our process. And so luckily the vendor was able to find a part back in Minnesota. It was due here yesterday and it has not arrived because of the weather that's happening, but it is en route and he's tracking it. As soon as it arrives, he will be making the repair immediately. In the meantime, we've got cardboard stacking up. And so we're working with WOW. If the part doesn't arrive this week as hoped, we'll probably have to get some help from Recology to come pick up some cardboard for us, and there'll be an expense to that. But it's at almost $12,000. It's $10,863 and $970 for the truck freight out here. So obviously this would exceed my recycle budget, requesting this amount of money. So it's created an emergency situation, not having the way to bale cardboard every day. And so we're asking that y'all need to do a transfer.
And specifically, the fact that this was an emergency it is defined under section 2.08.100, paren A, paren 4, dealing with interruption of services, because this is our businesses rely on us to be able to move their cardboard out. So based on that, we did authorize Karen to move forward with the acquisition of the part, but we do need you to approve resolution 21-11, which transfers the money from contingency to a line item where we could make this repair.
For council's awareness, we did do a request for bids if we have to replace this baler because it's getting so old. I don't know how this repair how long it will last. We got our second of 3 bids today. We're looking at anything from $75,000 to $110,000. And the next bid comes in, I'll see where that lands in that, but it's going to be an expensive replacement. So hoping that this part carries us on several more years. Thought maybe that would make the 12,000 bill a little bit better.
A little bit.
Well, thank you, Karen, for making that point. I had sent an email to Bruce asking that very question, and he quickly responded to me, and I'm aware of the large expense, but the machine has worked faithfully for 30 years. I think it's done a fantastic job, and I fully support what the recycling center does moving forward. So I'm happy to support the fund transfer in addition to looking at improving the existing equipment.
Thanks, Brandon.
Ashley?
So
Yes,
somebody make a motion?
Oh.
Oh, sorry.
I just want to put a little bit more context around what Bruce was talking about. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. So pursuant to your guys' public contracting rules, which is in your city code, for a goods and services, or I'm sorry, this is actually a personal service with an anticipated fee of over $10,000, you typically have to solicit additional bids and then make a decision based on those responses. There's an exception, which is applicable in this case for emergencies. So that's what Bruce was talking about. Under your city's code, you do not have to solicit bids when the personal service is of an emergency nature, which this one definitely was. I wanted to bring that up just to make sure that we're clear about that. And also to note that this is the second time this has come up recently. And these public contracting rules that are adopted in your city code are more restrictive than the state's public contracting code is. And so I wanted to put it in your mind that, there is a way to allow staff more flexibility in addressing this situation without having to be clear that, it's an emergency and that's why we're not soliciting 3 bids and coming back to you guys. This is a choice that Cannon Beach is making on a local level. And so I just wanted to bring that up to you and ask if this is how we want to continue to do it.
Thank you.
To answer your question, Ashley, at the time, I am comfortable. I understand what you're asking, but up to this point, I think things have worked rather well. And I don't mind as a counselor being asked to reinforce the fact that this is an emergency and we're being kept in the loop. I kind of appreciate that fact, but I also appreciate what you're bringing up.
Okay.
I'm happy to make a motion if discussion's over.
Please.
I move we approve the expenditure for the baler in the amount of $12,000.
Second.
Motion to approve and seconded. Jennifer?
So this is actually a resolution. Does that matter that we didn't approve the actual resolution?
I'd
We
be
do
happy
need to approve the resolution.
Resolution, yes. I move to approve. I was looking at the recommendation. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Move for consideration of resolution 21-11 for the purpose of approving increases and decreases to the fiscal year 2020-21 budget by making an intra-fund transfer of appropriations for the recycle baler repair.
Here we go.
Second.
Okay. Now we've got the text right. Jennifer?
All right. Counselor Risley?
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy?
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy?
Yes.
Council President Benefield?
Yes.
Mayor Stidel?
Yes. Okay. Get some cardboard moving. Okay. Next item, scope of review, determination for the Moon Appeal, Planning Commission decision to deny a cottage in conditional use. Yeah,
Okay, can you hear me?
we can.
Okay, good. Well, this is the City of Cannon Beach Planning Commission rendered a decision to deny the conditional use, which was CU number 2101, for a cottage industry for an automotive towing operation in conjunction with a new residence for Jeffrey D. Moon, tax lot 400, map 51032 BC, east of Highway 1, north of East Surfcrest. It's a 1.1 acre, very low density residentially zoned vacant property. And they denied that at January 28, 2021 regularly scheduled planning commission meeting. I attached the findings. Jeff Moon has requested a review of the decision in an application and letter received February 10th, and that was within the 14 consecutive day appeal period. City Council is then to hold a scope of review meeting, and that's what this is, as a non-public hearing item. And the terms under which it wishes to review the matter is 1788, 160 Canby Municipal Code, and I've copied off the all the relevant sections there, and it's below the list of attachments. The City Council shall use the application request for review under the guidance of 1788, 140, and 150 to inform the decision on whether to restrict the review to the record. So you've got four kind of options: to review to the record, limited to the additional materials that it feels are warranted, a de novo hearing, or remand it back to the Planning Commission. And I've made the attachments of the application and the letter of appeal, and then the findings from the Planning Commission. And Mr. Moon, in his application, has stated that he would like to see it limited to just the conditional use, which is what he's asking for, and which has changed because originally they came in with a partition to partition the property into two. The conditional use for the cottage industry also asked for variances for enclosure, and they were going to have an enclosed yard to store vehicles, and that they're requesting not to have that as part of this application. They asked for setback reductions and a sign variance, which are also no longer. So all they're asking for is to limit it to the conditional use for the cottage industry, and that's what they're requesting. That would be on March 9th, next Tuesday, which we've already noticed for.
Even though it's
Any
a work
question?
session, Jeff,
Excuse me?
even though it's a work session, you'll notice it so that we can vote at the meeting.
Yeah. Yes, we would notice it as a voting meeting, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Jeff, when we look at it next week, will we also have the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting and any correspondence regarding the request?
Yes, we'll get you, if you decide to limit it to just this, like they've requested, just to limit it to the conditional use, we'll pass along the entire record, and that includes the minutes and any, the public comment that was part of that.
Jeff, I have a question. If it's just limited to the conditional use, are you saying they're no longer asking to partition this 1 acre into 2 parcels?
Yes, that's correct. It is no longer being asked to partition this, and they're not asking for any of the other requests that they had brought forward, only the conditional use for cottage.
Well, then, seems to me this is a totally new application. Ought to
Isn't
come back
it
to
back to
the
the
planning.
planning?
That's what I'd be looking
Yeah.
at.
You hear that, Jeff?
Yes, I mean, you can remand this back if you would like to do that.
Those seem like significant changes from what the Planning Commission reviewed and made their finding on. With all those changes, we would just merely be substituting ourselves for the Planning Commission. So I would prefer to see it remanded back to them to address this, a new application with all these changes.
Is that a consensus there, or?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I think there may be
Okay.
too many changes for us to consider if we just have to consider the conditional use. I think I would prefer it go back to the planning commission as well.
Okay, great. Well, thank you.
Okay. Brandon, did you have a preference?
Well, consensus has already been met. I do have a differing opinion, but I'll just state it. I would be willing to hear the hearing as the applicant has requested.
I was kind of agreeing with Brandon, so, but if you want to take it back to the planning commission, that's fine. Let's go.
If that is what we're to do, what is the specific task or requirement that we need to put on this, Jeff, to do that?
You've asked for it to be remanded, so there really isn't a specific. It would be heard as a conditional use. They'll see the new information that they're presenting, and just as you would be, presented this new information they had asked to be limited to the scope. That scope's going to be the same.
Would you consider this essentially a brand new hearing? What I'm driving is if the applicant does not prevail with the planning commission, are they able to appeal the process again?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's my question.
Okay. Would it be a new appeal or just a continuation of this process?
So they would. Excuse me?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, so, my understanding is that if this is remanded back to them, they'll hear the new information and then make another decision, and then that can be appealed.
Okay. That's the consensus. We will remand it back to the planning commission as it was presented to us tonight.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hang on, I gotta find where we are at.
7.
This doesn't go by page numbers, it goes by reading this one, which is really long.
Mayor, I see that Jeff Moon's hand is up. Is it too late for him to say anything? Or are we moving on?
Well, it's, Jeff, I guess we can let him speak.
Mr. Moon, are you there?
Still muted.
Can you hear me now?
Hi,
Okay.
Jeff.
Hi, this is Jeff Moon. I live in Oregon City, 220 Ogden Drive. And I own that piece of property next to my brother Steve, just north of East Surfcrest. And I really would like you guys to hear this thing and make a decision on it instead of going it back down, remanding it back to the planning commission. I think the first time I tried to push this through, it was probably a little bit too much for them. I mean, it was a 90-page thing. They had a lot of other things. It was over a 225-page document between my stuff and some other issues with what they had to speak about. And I just feel that I would like you guys to I'm making an appeal, and appeal goes to the city council. I feel you guys should be able to make the decision. I didn't even have a rebuttal on the last time. And basically the way it was stated if I didn't get to put my mom's house and my brother's John's house on this property, and run the towing business out of there. And at that time we would probably do some light mechanical work, but we decided since then that we do not want to do any mechanic work at all. So our tow trucks are on the road in these 3 counties, Tillamook, Clatsop, and Pacific counties of Washington. And I just think I'm just after putting my brother's house on there with this big garage for our tow trucks. And so we have a place to park them, because right now we only have 3 places to park them downtown, and we have 5 trucks. We got 4 tow trucks and 1 service rig, and we have 2 drivers. It's just my 2 drivers. And all I'm asking is for us to be able to move forward. And John's the one that's living there with the garage. And then my brother Steve lives next door, but he would be the 1 employee as our cottage industry business. And everything, I would like you guys to make the decision on it next week if possible.
Well, it sounds like we feel that there is substantial change from what was originally decided to what we've been asked. So I guess that's the idea is there's, I don't know, right?
Well, I mean, there was five variances before, and now we have 1 variance. And I only made appeal for 1 thing. And
This is not a hearing.
I know, but
You still have the option to appeal it back to us. So it's just kind of our process we've got to work through here, Jeff.
okay.
Sorry, it'll take some time. We'll get there.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you guys.
thanks. Thank you. Okay, now we're moving on to our next item, I think, is the committee board commission ballot. Okay. We don't have paper ballots, or do we?
No, because we started doing roll call because we have people on Zoom.
Right. We're gonna do a roll call with 3 people on the ballot.
We can do a roll call and each person can say who they vote for.
Okay.
And do we need 3 at some point?
We have 3 applicants for 1 position on the Parks Committee.
Right.
So, let's just see what happens. So let's do design review is done, because it's either, let's do the design review. And so go ahead.
Okay, so this would be for the Design Review Board renewal. And the applicant is David Doring. So Councilor Ogilvy,
I guess yes.
Councilor McCarthy.
I'm leaning toward no, because he didn't give us any information. He didn't fill out the form at all. So I'd say no.
I think it's typically a renewal. They just check a renewal.
Okay, this is a renewal. Never mind. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, of course.
Thank you, Ms. Latilla.
Emily?
Council President Benefield.
I'll vote for David.
Councilor Rizzo.
David, yes.
Okay, and Mayor Stidel.
David.
Okay.
Okay, so it works, sort of. Parks and Community Services. You'll ask for the roll call and you'll give the name of the person you're voting for.
Do we want to hear from them at all? Because I know Beth is here and Betty's here.
Oh.
Do they want to say anything?
Yeah, there should. Sure.
Beth or Betty, and Courtney, I don't see, unless she's on a number.
Which one do you want to do first?
Let's do Betty. She's on
Okay.
right there. Still on mute.
Which one's Betty?
I
Just
am.
one, just clear. Hello.
Hi there.
Do you have a,
I watched the meeting last week. I really loved what the committee is doing, and I think I could be a valuable person on that committee. My values are education, and when people come to Cannon Beach, I'm hoping they have a beautiful experience with the nature that we have here, and I want to preserve the nature we have, and I'm really interested in more educational offerings for the community. So it just felt like something that would be a great committee to be part of.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Let's move for Beth and see what she has to say. First, he has to punch a whole bunch of buttons to get somebody to talk. Usually it's no problem.
She's on mute too, so.
You're on mute, Beth.
Beth, you're on mute.
She's not answering.
Okay, I guess she didn't want to talk. And we don't know
And I didn't hear back from Courtney when I sent an email.
if, okay. Okay, then we'll move on to our process. Jennifer?
Okay, so Councilor McCarthy,
Betty Guerin,
Council President Benefield,
Betty Guerin.
Councilor Risley,
Betty Guerin.
Councilor Ogilvy,
Betty Kieran.
Whoa.
Mayor Seidel.
Well, let's make it unanimous, Betty, and join the Parks Committee.
Welcome, Betty.
Congratulations.
So I think to be official now that we have, this would be our ballot part, we would do the motion.
Right, we need a motion to approve the folks who have been selected for their appropriate committees.
I move to approve Betty Guerin for Parks and Community Service. And can you do it together?
Sure.
And I move to appoint David Goring as the Design Review Board renewal.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Jennifer?
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Councilor Risley,
Yes.
Councilor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy,
yes.
Mayor Seidel.
Yes. And thank you for stepping up. Both of you, or David.
Yeah.
Okay, bye now. Next item. Oh, it's that time of year.
Oh, it is that time of the year.
There we
And
go.
it will be a little bit less stressful than that voting was.
2020 annual report. Jason.
Yes, so I'll go through this quickly. You have a copy, you can certainly peruse and always ask me questions if you have them. Just one thing that I always put in our annual report, I've been at this almost 9 years down here. And we made this mission statement as well as the vision and values back in, I believe, 2013 with the community and the officers' input. And nothing has changed since. And all the officers, even though we've had some attrition and officers move on, they all still agree with the path that we're headed down. As all of you experienced as well, it was a challenging year. Started out the year last year with devastating loss of 2 children to the ocean. And then it proceeded into COVID-19, police brutality, civil unrest, and a lot of use of force policy reconsiderations that we looked at. And obviously, they're still reeling across the country on making those changes. And I know with our policy, Lexipol is a great company that we work with, and they were making the same changes that we had already made a few months after we had. And so I think that we had good direction there. Again, being just last year, we would think, besides the amount of people, we would think it would be a slower year, but we were very busy. Over 1,083 calls over the previous year. And actually in the last 8 years, it's almost double the amount of calls we have each year. So picking up, and we don't see that changing anytime soon. We think that the next year, at the very least, is going to be busy. And we're already seeing that influx this year. Just in January, I think we were 36 calls ahead of where we were last year.
Do you think this is just based on increased tourism?
Yeah, I think the lack of ability to travel, people that are afraid to travel and fly different areas, and this is easier for them to come down here and take advantage of our area, but we've certainly seen that, and I think it will be an interesting spring break this year. Last year, we had just started COVID, so there were a lot of people that were restricted and or cautious still, but this year I think it will be a lot different.
So get any sense that there's more stress with people?
More stress? Yes. And I think it's gotten better. It's kind of leveled out. At the beginning, there was a lot of the unknown. People didn't know what was going to happen. Now I think there's just stress with the people trying to get in and get their shots and get the kids back to school and try to get life somewhat back to normal. And so I think that's still going to be quite a while until we get closer to where we need to be. Many new enforcement obstacles that we went through, and really against our, especially Cannon Beach's welcoming mindset, things that the officers were having to enforce, whether it was when we closed the beach or closed the play structures down, just things that we aren't typical wanting to do. We're trying to build that welcoming environment for everybody. We did have K-9 gunner retire. We weren't able to do a ceremony here because of COVID, but he did have a good ceremony. And then Officer Josh Utley left in August. So we're still trying to fill that position in the background phase for our hopefully upcoming officer. But more disappointing situations were the inability to do the things like National Night Out and the Tip a Cop events or Burger with a Cop events. I do have some photos here of our Shop with a Cop events, because that was a must that we continued doing that, but it was very entertaining because they'd be sitting across from us at the table and we kept our distance, but it was pretty funny to watch because you're trying to, with that group of kids, build that relationship up with the law enforcement. And so it's tough to be distanced from them and yelling back and forth what you're wanting to say. Back there with the statistics, it goes through our Part 1 offenses. There were significant increases in both the Part 1 and Part 2. In Part 1 offenses, there's an increase by 55% from the previous year, which included the assaults doubled from 5 to 10, burglary tripled from 2 to 7, and the thefts went up as well from 29 to 38. Motor vehicle thefts went from 2 to 4. Thankfully, homicide, robbery, and arson remained at 0. Part 2 offenses saw an increase of 70% from the previous year. There were substantial increases in vandalism. I guess that's how it was always said when we were growing up. Now it's called criminal mischief, but we went from 16 to 44. And some of that you've seen through town, different areas that have been graffitied or damaged. And we've certainly put up cameras and are working on that. We're doing a tracking of the dates that they're happening and times to try to narrow down what it is. We're thinking it's a transient population, either from the metro area or somebody coming down here and doing it. If you haven't been to Portland in a while, you hit I-84 and there's graffiti all along both sides of the highway there. It's actually similar to some of the graffiti we've seen here. And so we are working on it, but also there was a lot of different political type stickers that were posted on signs, street signs, as well as COVID stickers that were being created. Like I said, increases also in disorderly conduct from 3 to 22, and that adds to what you were talking about, Mike, with the stress, the fights and different arguments that would be started, different things. And there were several throughout the year regarding mask wearing and people confronting people themselves and trying to get people to put their masks on. It would turn pretty ugly at times. Increases in domestic disturbances, people being trapped at home or spending too much time together. Forgeries went up, sex offenses went from 1 to 2, and minor in possession of alcohol went up as well. Decreases in fraud and drug laws, while weapons laws, DUI arrests, and furnishing alcohol to minors, as well as possession of marijuana, stayed the same. Nancy caught this. There wasn't a 50% increase in fugitive arrests. They doubled, so there was a 100% increase, going from 11 to 22, and a decrease in criminal trespassing. Increase, as you'll see in a future slide, in the traffic citations, and a decrease in motor vehicle accidents. Usually those correlate differently, where if there's an increase in citations, there's a decrease in accidents because you're educating them. But that wasn't the case this year. And there was an increase, as expected, with cases that we referred to classic behavioral health care. And on a side note with that, that's something that we're working on through our county. I know that we had talked recently about some of the programs, like in Eugene, there's a CAHOOTS program where the mental health people ride with the officers throughout the day to be able to respond to that. And that's more of a resource allocation that we don't have in Clatsop County, but we are certainly working on it. And we have a monthly meeting amongst the chiefs and the sheriff with Clatsop Behavioral Health Care to talk about issues that are reoccurring and subjects that we need to focus energy on. And so I think it's working very well. It's always going to be a work in progress. Busy summertime as well with the lifeguards on the beach. They had a lot of water rescues this year, which was higher than normal, just with the amount of people that were coming down on the beach and weren't familiar with the ocean. Moving on to investigations, Lieutenant Wilbur. Not too much change there. One thing that you guys may not have been aware of last year, it was probably 3 or 4 years ago, I sent him to the Department of Justice in New York City, where he received a grant to become a deputy medical examiner. It was the training that they receive. And just last year, I think in the summertime, Dr. Giuliani, who was our medical examiner, well-deservedly retired. And so that left a void that we weren't able to fill in the county. And so many of the major crime detectives had to take over that role whenever there was a death investigation. And as you can imagine, it's not fun and it's rarely timely. So they would be called out in the middle of the night and respond to that. So Lieutenant Wilbur helped do that. And in fact, he's still helping do it. I think now that we have a new one in place, on her days off, the detectives are taking turns covering for her. So I think they do have a new part-time one starting soon as well, which will be a good relief for the lieutenant. Not too much of a change in the census, but as I talked about, the calls for service have almost doubled in the last 8 years. Patrol activity varied. but it was higher, slightly higher in most of the areas. We talked about the traffic enforcement and traffic accidents. One thing that we've been participating in the last year and more recently is cell phone citations. And we're just getting so many that still are using their cell phones. In fact, the third offense now becomes a misdemeanor. And that's trying to crack down on people being on their phones because it's such a distraction. But one good thing that we've worked with Judge Wolger and the court is that first-time offenders can go do similar to a diversion where they go to a class and can see the destruction that being on their cell phones or distracted driving has. Going on to the ONIBRS, which is the Oregon National Incident-Based Reporting System. This is Valerie's job or one of her jobs in the police department. And it's tough for her because she's consistently having to get on the officers about getting their reports in on time, which is helpful to me, but she needs to turn those over to the FBI for the yearly stats. But it's she's done a great job. And the biggest thing is that she keeps us at a 0 error rate, which is really important and not common. Alarm services, they both take care of this. And I don't think there was anything alarming last year. Definitely not anything remarkable. Records division, it was surprising that we had so many walk-ins. People still that walked up, during COVID, and we were using the window as well, but there's just a lot of people that need to come up and talk to somebody and also just make either gain a permit or making contact. Evidence division, that's Laura. She's our evidence technician, does a wonderful job. As we talk about every year, there's always an increase. Just in 2020, there was a 35% increase over the previous year. And so that becomes a space issue where we're cramming, trying to find places because it needs to be in a secure area. But also we've just made some changes with ventilation and different improvements over there because that marijuana smell, if it gets put in there, and especially this year, wasn't accessible for us to go to Covanta and Salem and dispose of it there. And so sitting in that room, it comes out under the door. And so now we've got venting and it's working much better for their breathing. But you would, right when you walked into the PD, you'd smell it. Code enforcement. This is the, I think, third year we've had code enforcement, and Travis is doing a great job. In fact, he did this whole report with his own graphs, but he became code enforcement after Jenny went to patrol. And so in January of last year, he joined us and has been very busy. There are, those cases are increasing. And you can see a big difference going back to even 2017 and 2020, going from 56 in 2017 to 248 in 2020. And that's a huge relief for the officers not having to get tied up on that when they're on a call or have those pending. And it's easier to have one person that's focusing on that and working with Jeff and Public Works as well. He's also working on the vacation rentals. We currently have 207 active vacation rental permits. And that keeps him busy as well. He added some photos of some of the things he deals with, whether it's people not securing their garbage cans, litter in the streets, as well as in people's yards, rubbish, that type of thing, and taking care of that. Staff training, I won't go through all of it, but just so you're aware, I mean, last year was a slower year for us to be going to training just because a lot of it was canceled or on Zoom. And we still had over 1,250 hours of training amongst all of us. But one thing to note, because you often ask, what is a new officer? How much training do they do their first year and how much money do we put into that? But this is Officer Jenny Thompson Kiefer, and she attended the academy last year, which is 640 hours alone to attend the academy, but altogether with other certifications and typical firearms training, she received almost 700 hours of training just last year. And so that's hours that she's getting paid. And that's where it's tough for us to have a new officer come and leave a year or two later, because we really don't get our money back from that. It's a tough thing.
About 1/3 of their work year.
What's that?
About 1/3 of their work year.
Yeah. We went through the statistics, but they're certainly there if you want to review them. Use of force review. I always like to go through this just so you guys are aware of what's going on. We did have 15 documented use of force incidents. So anytime the officers use force, they need to have a use of force report to me within or before they leave that night, just documenting what's happened. If obviously it's something serious, they need to call me immediately or the lieutenant. And then part of that, most of them have always happened in the evening hours. This year it was 73%. 46 involved the use of an alcoholic beverage. 33 involved the use of illegal drugs. 26% of the incidents involved the suspect with some form of mental illness. And I had gone through these with Officer Jordan, and a good percentage of the ones that had a mental illness weren't intoxicated as well. So you see the mix of, it can usually be somebody under the influence of something or having a mental illness. And those are all taken into considerations when we're deciding that use of force in the split second that they have to deal with it. One incident did involve the use or threatened use of the taser. There was no one tased last year. And a lot of times once they see the probe on them, they comply. Usually they'll understand, and that's really all it takes. 80% of the suspects were male. 53% involved the use of physical force, which is really just hands-on. Even if they're putting their hands on them to put their hands behind their back and they're physically resisting, we count that as a physical use of force. 40% involved the drawing of the officer's weapon, which they're just displaying their firearm in the low ready position. And then 3 of the incidents resulted in some type of injury to the suspect. So in all the 3 cases last year, they were abrasions from escorting the subject to the ground and them resisting. 2 officers were injured during 2 of the use of force incidents, and those were abrasions as well, but also being expectorated or spit on. And that's always a concerning thing, especially with this year with COVID and different issues, where they more often than not will go up to the hospital to get a cocktail or to get tested for different things as well. And there were no citizen complaints regarding any of these use of force incidents from last year.
Do we know, or is it appropriate to know if these are mostly out of towners or local?
That's a great question, because something we don't know at this, well, I guess we could know. I think it's more so visitors, just remembering back at looking at the sheets, but it's certainly something that we're going to be tracking. I was impressed with the fire department this year that they're tracking a lot of what are local calls and what are tourism related, just so we know where that's coming from, especially for funding and different things. And so that is something that we're going to be working on, whether it's somebody that lives in town here on our calls.
One of my concerns is if we have residents both here and in the county, basically, because the county mental health system is needing help. And I know there's talk about reinforcing it. So
yeah, no, absolutely. That's a good question. And then this was Gunner's retirement. He's doing well, still with Joe. And he has, I believe, 2 buddies that live with him. So he's in good hands. This was our Shop with the Cop events, COVID style. Like I said, there's a lot of separation. We still had just as many kids, and it was just a different time, but went just as well. And it's always a fun experience for the officers and the admins, as well as the students. We had a good group this year. And that is all, unless you guys have any questions.
So we're gonna go big time with Burger with the Cops.
Yes, well, I'm excited. I actually signed us up for National Night Out today because you have to register. And so, yeah, I'm putting that forward, but yes, we'll be excited.
Chief, I do have a quick question.
Yeah.
You previously mentioned that you would start compiling the statistics about whether, as to Sam's question, whether the use of force was somebody that's visiting the community or a resident. Something I think that, and you mentioned also the fire department doing the same thing. I think that's some important information moving forward. If there's ever to be, some type of change in the way we're able to spend tourism funds, I think it's important to have that type of documentation to demonstrate the need. Or
absolutely. Part of that is my argument that we house tourists.
Yes, very much so. I agree.
If necessary, do you have currently on your files the ability to go back? Here and
no, we certainly can. And this actually probably after spring break is the time where it kind of slows down in April and May, where we have time to go through those stats and try to figure out what we're looking at. Use of force will be easier because it's more limited, but from now on, we've started tracking. There's a little box on our computer that when they're doing their reports, they can put if it was a tourist, somebody from out of the area, and certainly not to discredit them, but just to document, where our funds are going.
Helpful. Good. Any other questions, comments? Thanks, Jason.
You always make a great report. Thank you.
You're a good team, Jason. Nice to know you guys are doing something.
That's what I tell them. I have to prove why you guys have a job. No, they're a great crew. They really, and I know you guys appreciate them. You've shown it throughout the years, but we really do have a great crew there, and I'm proud of them.
I know one of the officers has found a really good traffic spot.
Yes.
See him all the time.
I'm sure you do, but it's a perfect spot for him to be able to see the cell phones, people on their cell phones. And it is, it's just like seatbelts. It's so disturbing, people that don't wear seatbelts anymore after all the things we've seen and heard, but more so with the phones, with how distracting they are. And I certainly understand, even the judge, when he's talking to them, says, I know what the distraction is. He said, I hear my phone ding and I want to reach to grab it, but I know better. And with phones now, I know with my phone, Jack set this on there when I first got it. If anybody calls me or anything, immediately says I'm driving, but I can't hear and nothing pops up on it. And it's funny, my son, I guess he was 10 at the time, set it on my phone for me, and I don't know how to undo it. So there it stays.
But he saved your life so many times.
Yes.
I know this is not your district, but is there any inclination of why there's been so many traffic accidents on 26 this winter and fall?
It's always been a safety corridor just because of all the accidents. But one area that we're really concerned about is milepost, kind of between milepost 32 and 34 down here.
Oh, yeah, down there too.
Is, gosh, I want to say just in the last month, we've had over 4 accidents right there at 32 to 34. And they built a berm there, ODOT did, because there's not a guardrail there, and the berm has not helped at all because now they're just catching air, and there's berry bushes down there that they usually land in, which is good. But no, it's certainly something that we discuss and we'll bring up to ODOT and the sheriff's office because it is too bad.
Yeah, I'm just curious if there's any state statistics or anything.
They're usually speed related, because they just overcorrect when they get going too fast in those corners. And I don't even like going the speed limit down through Arch Cape at times. Especially with last year, all the cars that were parked off the side of the road.
Yeah, the corner right after the lookout always gets.
Yeah, that's a.
Just doesn't look like it's that much of a corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Let's see what Lori has to say. Consideration for approving a contract for auditing services.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. Tonight, I'm going to ask you to consider extending our contract with our current auditor, Eisler CPA, Paul Nielsen. So back in 2016, we sent out requests for proposals, and I think we got about 3 responders back. But we ultimately selected Eisler CPA for that audit our financial statements. And so we have a 3-year contract and then a 2-year extension. So that was a total of 5 years. And now that has run out. And so I believe there are many good reasons why we should retain him for another 3 years. He has a lot of knowledge, obviously, about how we operate here in Cannon Beach. And that provides efficiencies for him and staff. They also do our room tax audit. We select 10 lodging operators every year, and it's a separate assignment, and they perform that, and so they do a great job on that. Staff is very satisfied with the quality of the audits and the procedures and processes, and so that's a good thing. Council obviously benefits from the history that Paul has gained throughout the years working with you all. The GFOA recommends multi-year agreements. And so I think adding 3 years onto that is a good way to go for us at the moment. And, you know, we're dealing with COVID-19 right now, and I think we just need the stability in the city that would provide retaining our current auditor who can just get up and go and do their job without a bunch of extra work that comes with maybe hiring a different auditor or doing an RFP process at this time. I can say that, you know, I call them during the year when I have a question. They're always available to me. So it's not just working with them like at one specified time in the summer and then they disappear. So you know, it's really great to be able to do that, and keeps me on my toes, and then I'm ready for them at year end when I can get all of those little questions answered during the year. The pricing that he's given us for the 3 years is really very modest, ranging 2.77% to 3.135%. Oh, I missed one percentage there. Staff is recommending that we renew the contract for a 3-year period.
Lori, doesn't Eisler have somebody in Astoria that is easily accessed by us?
Jennifer's our audit manager. She's actually the one that does the room tax audit.
Right.
And she lives in Astoria.
Yeah.
And actually, Paul has a lot of clients in Clatsop County. So he's kind of a popular guy. Even the city of Gerhart called me one day and was asking, I think they're trying to reach out for a different auditor. So he got glowing reviews from the other people that Gerhart called. So.
Does anybody not like Eisler? I think that'd be the easier way to start this.
Yeah, he's fun to listen to, his presentations.
Yeah.
Okay.
When they come here, they're very professional. They set up in here, let Lori know what they need, get it, a couple days they're out. They know just what they're doing. It's very good. Very good operation.
Well, based on the recommendations, I would make a motion to approve the contract amendment extending auditing services for 3 years in accordance with the attached proposal letter dated January 15th, 2021, from Eisler CPA.
Second?
Okay, motion to approve and seconded. Any last comments?
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Lori.
Okay, Council McCarthy,
Yes.
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Councilor Risley,
Yes.
Councilor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Mayor Stidell.
Yes. Thanks, Lori. Seth, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Muska overflow notice of civil penalty. No, I think we got one more. Update on
one. Yeah.
Update on regarding street on dining discussions on street dining. I don't have that.
Oh, there's no staff report for that one, so if you're
Yeah.
looking at the packet.
Well, this is the first time one of Jeff's pages looks like this. I don't know if he's got a PowerPoint someplace else, but it's pretty blank now.
He'll spring it on us.
Yeah.
Jeff's not on the call.
Okay, well, Jeff's not on the call. Let me tell you what actually, Jason, you've been at more of the meetings, you and Karen. But I think we have one is interested. And that is Gregor's. And kind of the position that we're taking is that, or at least my discussions with Jeff, is we want to do everything we can to keep people working and to keep the businesses viable until things straighten out. So it's inconvenient for us or not, it doesn't matter. That's what we're working on. So if we can create additional dining opportunities and it's, they're reasonable about accommodating our conditions, then it makes sense. Some people are saying that if you are going to allow 2 or 3 spaces to be used for outdoor dining, then what is the difference if I want to have 2 or 3 spaces outside of my business to facilitate takeout? And my position on that is having additional dining can make or break or determine if people have jobs. If you were going to sell the takeout anyway, then that's probably not going to be a make or break, but it could possibly improve or something. But also, there's probably more people are going to request that are going to request having outdoor dining in street dining. So my concern is once we get to season, if 5 of them request it and it's 3 spaces each, it's 15, 20 spaces, and we're still not accommodating diners for in-house businesses. So we're kind of looking at those different, and we'll just kind of see as people come along as want to try it. Well, Karen, I think that you had told me that we're looking to move some of the, not barrels, but the kind of the big flower pots down by the recycling.
Expose aggregate,
Yeah.
concrete planters.
Right, but we would move those and use those for the end caps essentially and allow them to do what they want with them. But instead of putting up just the barriers, those are things that we can handle.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, but it was never thought to be the most beautiful, but just from a protection. But those will slow somebody down at least. But we heard what you were saying. So Karen, do you have anything to add where I just said? Jason?
No, I thought they had withdrawn.
They asked us just to delay it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So ready to start right away because the level went down to low risk.
did a 50%, right?
They said they were going to just kind of revamp what they had been doing and asked us just delay the start of it.
Yeah. But I feel good that we're giving businesses that opportunity if they need it. And I think it's the right thing to do. And we stand ready to go ahead and work with anybody that wants to come forward.
So
I attended that meeting or the Zoom meeting with the chamber, and there sure didn't seem to be much interest in it at all. Cindy was the one that talked about the space in front of her restaurant for pickup. But as far as actual anybody asking questions or saying, yes, I want this, there didn't seem to be any interest. So have you gotten any interest outside of that meeting?
Not that we're aware of, Nancy.
Nancy, I listened to it also and I felt the same way.
Yeah.
We're just creating an opportunity, you know, if they don't want to do it. But I think going to the 50% helped also,
Yes.
because 50% is still more than we could possibly give them. But if they see a need, we can do something.
One question I was trying to ask, but I never got recognized at that meeting was how many spaces per restaurant are we looking at if we go ahead and do this?
Nancy, I don't know. It depends on what they ask for. We would have to evaluate that on a case-by-case basis.
I think also that's kind of self-regulating just because of the service. You know, you don't want your waiters walking halfway down the street. So 3 to 4 would be a maximum, obviously, from just functioning, which might be too much, but still, I think that would be a maximum.
So are you saying right now there's nobody that's proposing to do this? There was, but they've withdrawn it.
Correct.
The only thing I can think of it, the conundrum with the takeout versus sitting dining is just limit, if somebody wants to do takeout, just limit them to one space, because that's basically what takeout would do. We could, that might be something to think about.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
But that's where we are.
Okay. Do you need something from us then?
No, just want to let you know what's going on.
Okay, any other questions?
And if I just want to add one thing, if the chamber or anybody has an idea that would help, we would certainly bring it to you. And we're not hearing anything right now, but we want to help. So it's what we're trying to do.
I think it would, to me, if somebody like McGregor's were to do something, I think other places might start thinking about it. But again, there's also the future seems to be opening. So we'll see. Okay, let's move on. Now, Matanuska overflow notice of civil penalty.
As I'm sure you recall, we had an overflow last July, July 17th, 2020. And we have now received notice that the DEQ has issued us our fine associated with that overflow. The amount is $1,650. And we have a couple of options in the letter that was issued to us. Or before I get into that, they did advise us that there will be a notice that they are required to post in the paper. It'll be a brief notice stating the city's name and what the fine is. There's no details, that explains this is not a new occurrence, that it's associated with the previous. She didn't get into the details of what the wording would be. Hopefully that doesn't generate misunderstanding from folks thinking that some other occurrence has happened. So I've been kind of watching for that post to appear in the paper. They gave us some choices in the letter that we can appeal the fine, pay the fine, or do an environmental type project. And what staff is recommending is that we pay the fine and not pursue the appeal. As you know, we made several improvements and repairs to the pump station. We received our money to be able to put a cover on it. I'll be asking the budget committee to complete the improvements that we want to do there with the electronics and our generator. And I think if those things are approved, Matanuska is going to be leaps and bounds better than it has been for many years. And so I think we'll be in a much better situation than we've been in the past. So finally, our recommendation is to approve the fine and not do an appeal.
Yeah, and also there's something called a supplemental environmental project that you can use to offset the fine. We're recommending that right now we don't do that because the fine is not that high that we'd be offsetting. And it's just another thing to put on staff's shoulders right now. And so those would be the three recommendations And I would like a motion to say that we're going to accept the fine and we will not appeal. And then that way we can just go ahead and take care of it. I do want to point out, and I know that council is very aware of this, but we have other lift stations in the same condition as Matanuska. And so that's why we're pushing so hard on it when we get the budget. And you all have been very supportive in the things we were trying to do so far. But this is why we want to make sure that we don't have these.
I'm curious, just for curiosity, what would be an environmental project?
I'm not sure, in my past life, there's been wetland restorations. It could be something along those lines that, again, you have to go through a design evaluation and there's an expense because usually somebody has to install something.
I'm just curious if something like our drain problem with the Ocean Street, fixing some of those drains, would that be an environmental project? Because we're already going to do it, you know, that kind of thing.
I don't know because because DEQ is tied to it, but so is OPRD. So I don't know how that would be interpreted. But again, by the time somebody made that decision, I would rather just be done. We can still do those.
Yeah, no, it would be good to have possibly some environmental projects on our shelves. So when we do have this kind of, if this came up again and it was much more severe,
sure,
then we'd say, oh, yes, we have one that we could do.
Yeah.
So it might take a little bit of research to figure that out.
Yeah. And also you just see what other people are doing in there for the steps.
Yeah.
Motion to pay and not to appeal would be good news for DEQ and everybody else involved.
Okay.
I'll make a motion. I recommend approving paying of the civil penalty of $1,650, not filing an appeal of the fine, and declining the option to replace the fine with a supplemental environmental project.
Second.
Okay, last question. Jennifer?
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Councilor Risley,
Yes.
Councilor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
Mayor Stidel.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, last item is consideration of a proclamation, the 101 Red Cross Month. Bruce?
This was specifically requested by Janae, and she wanted to do everything we could to get it on tonight. She wants Cannon Beach to be the first to make the proclamation.
Okay. I'm not really in the mood right now to read a proclamation. I think we can adopt it, or so if somebody would be willing to do that.
Move to adopt proclamation. What's the number again on it? Oh, 2101.
We have Janae on the phone. Do you want to see if she wants to say anything?
Okay, Janae?
Janae, would you like to speak?
Yeah. Let's push some buttons here.
Let me go ahead and second that motion.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mike.
I'm here. Well, I just want to say thank you guys for supporting the Red Cross. The American Red Cross has our deepest gratitude to the city of Cannon Beach for all your help and support. And this will be the first city at the coast to adopt the proclamation. So thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Janae.
Okay, then we have a motion that's been seconded. Jennifer?
All right, I ran out of room on my checklist. Councilor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Councilor Risley,
Yes.
Mayor Stidel.
Yes. And that concludes our evening for the official stuff. Anything for the monthly status reports? No. Any communications? I had something and I forgot it.
Central Dispatch?
Oh, yeah, that was there was a communication kind of bopping around there from some of the mayors about the central dispatch, and that's still a viable topic. You've been talking to some of the other folks. So that's just happening. Seaside's being persnickety about their precious little jailhouse funding. So hopefully one of these days we'll have a county-wide communication system. Other than that, I haven't, anybody else? Yes? Okay, then. Good of the order.
I have a good of the order. Everybody knows Jennifer Barrett and Rusty Barrett and how hard and loyal they are to the city. So much so that the first Tuesday and the second Tuesday of the month, they consider a date night. Okay, now, let me just try to explain how special tonight's date night is. Rusty, what is tonight?
Our 8th anniversary.
And you're still there. Yeah, you guys, Rusty, you're too much, man. I gotta say, you set a standard that we cannot meet.
I can't wait to see what he does for 9.
Yeah, yeah. But thank you both for, so much for what you do. And Monday, we at least you have 2 date nights a month.
Yeah.
It's a very COVID anniversary.
Yeah.
Social distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, thank you, folks, and thank you for letting me throw something in.
Anybody else?
Happy birthday, Eve, Nancy.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, we tried to make it to the birthday so we could sing, but we were a little short.
I would like to thank all the staff involved in light of the email we received from Bill Kabayason today.
Yes.
About the Luba decision, and it's
Yes.
at least as of now, its resolution. There may be an appeal, but thank you, Jeff, and to the rest of the staff as well as
A
Bill.
lot of people really worked hard on that, not just here, but also some of the community organizations to help support that effort. It's a community-wide effort. And I thank Bill for pursuing this and guiding us through a lot of it.
And Orca
Yeah, Orca was awesome.
and Friends of the Dune.
Friends of the Dunes was persistent.
Yes.
Yeah, no, everybody contributed and should be happy with that.
And we weren't specific on what happened in our conversation right now, but what happened is the city and everybody else prevailed regarding the Fort Dune management decisions that were made here in the city. And so we prevailed at Luba. So,
yep. Okay, then. That's it. We are adjourned.
Sam?
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah.
Sure told me